for their development of giant industries and then take it over. Proudhon thought that we must retreat into a simpler society. And he wrote a book, The Philosophy of Poverty. And I replied with my own book, Poverty of Philosophy, which I thought was rather clever, but Jenny thought was insulting. But I suppose Jenny was a far better human being than I could ever be. She encouraged me to get off me behind and involve myself in the cause of the London workers. And she came with me when I was invited to address the first meeting of the Internationalist Working Men's Association. I believe that was in the fall of 1864. 2,000 people were packed into St. Martin's Hall. The workers of all countries must unite against foreign policies which are criminal, which play upon national prejudices, which squander in wars the people's blood and treasure. We must combine across national boundaries to vindicate the simple laws of morals and justice in international affairs. Workers of the world, unite! Jenny liked that. She kept the family going, with the water cut off and the gas cut off, but she never tired of the subject of female emancipation. She said that the vitality of women was being sapped by them staying at home, darning socks and cooking. So she refused to stay at home. She accused me of being theoretically an emancipationist, but practically ignorant on the problems of women. You and Engels, she said, you write about sexual equality, but you do not participate. Well, I refuse to comment on that. Now, she supported with all her heart the Irish struggle against England. Queen Victoria had said, "These Irish are really abominable people, not like any other civilized nation." So Jenny wrote a letter to the London newspapers. England hangs Irish rebels who wanted freedom from England. Is England a civilized nation? Jenny and I were powerfully in love. I don't know how to make you understand that, but we had gone through hellish times in London. The love was still there, but at a certain point something happened. I don't know what it was. Jenny said it was because she was no longer the great beauty I had wooed, and that made me angry. Then she said it was because of Lincoln, and that made me even more angry. Then she said I was angry because it was true, and that made me furious. Yes, yes. They claim that since the collapse of the USSR, communism is dead. Do these idiots know what communism is? Do they think a system run by a thug and who kills his fellow revolutionaries is communism? Schusskeiten. That's German. I won't explain it. Journalists, politicians who say such things, what kind of an education have they had? Did they ever read the manifesto? What did I do with it? There it is. That Engels and I wrote when he was 28 years old and I was 30. In place of the old bourgeois society with its classes and class antagonisms, we shall have an association. Remember that word. In which the free development of each is the condition for the free development of all. Do they understand? Do they understand the object of communism? Freedom of the individual to develop himself or herself as a compassionate human being. Do they think that someone who calls himself a communist or a socialist and acts like a gangster understands what communism is? To shoot those who disagree with you, is that the communism I spent my life for? That monster in Russia who took all power for himself and insisted on interpreting my ideas like a religious fanatic when he was putting his old comrades against the wall before firing squads. Did he allow his citizens to read the letter that I wrote to the New York Tribune in which I said, capital punishment cannot be justified in any nation who calls himself civilized? Here in America, your prisons are crowded. So who is in them, eh? The poor. Now some of them have committed violent and terrible crimes, but most of them are just ordinary robbers, thieves, sellers of drugs. They believe in the free enterprise system. They do what capitalists do, but on a much smaller scale. Do you know what Engels and I wrote about prisons? Let me see. Here we go. Well, yes. Rather than punishing individuals for their crimes, we should destroy the social conditions which engender crime and give to each individual the scope which he needs in society in order to develop his life. Oh yes. We spoke of a dictatorship of the proletariat, not a dictatorship of the party, of a central committee, not a dictatorship of one man. No. We spoke of a temporary dictatorship of the working class, where the masses take over the state and govern in the interests of all, until after a while the state no longer becomes necessary and gradually disappears. Bakunin, of course, disagreed with me. He said that a state, even a worker state, if it has an army, police, or prisons, will become a tyranny. Well, he loved to argue with me. Do you know who he is? Bakunin? The anarchist? Well, if a novelist ever wrote into a book this character, you would say to yourself, there's no such person that could possibly exist. And to say that Bakunin and I did not get along would be a great understatement. Here's what he said when Engels and I were in Brussels, writing the manifesto. Marx and Engels, especially Marx, are ingrained bourgeois. We were ingrained bourgeois. Well, of course, compared to Bakunin, everyone was bourgeois. Because Bakunin chose to live like a pig. And if you didn't live like a pig, if you had a roof over your head, if you had a piano in your sitting room, and you enjoyed a little fresh bread and wine, you were bourgeoisie. Now, I grant a man courage.